Profits are the most important thing when it comes to doing business. But in order to make a profit, you have to generate revenue. And the way you generate revenue is through sales. Well, today's guest is going to give you the tips, tricks, and tools to generating more sales by giving you his 4-part framework to setting and achieving sales goals. Keep it locked. Our guest today is going to help your business close more sales, generate more revenue, and create more profits.
Welcome to this edition of Peak Performance Podcast with your host, Thor Conklin. Thor will be sharing the necessary tools, strategies, and psychology you'll need to become a peak performer in any area of your life or business.
Thor Conklin here. We give you the tricks, the tips, the tools, the strategy, the technology, and the psychology peak performers use in order to get more done and execute at the highest level. If you know what to do but struggle with getting it all done, or simply want to raise your game to the next level, this podcast is for you. Sit back and enjoy.
Today's guest is Jim Brown, former sales extraordinaire at Slingshot SEO and host of the Sales Tuners podcast. Jim specializes in helping sales individuals to maximize their sales revenue using a step-by-step formula that he developed. This is the same formula that Jim used to take 2 companies from $1 million in revenue to over $10 million. If you want to raise your sales game and generate more revenue and profits for your business, you will definitely want to stick around for what Jim has to say.
Jim, thank you so much for joining us today. I am looking forward to this conversation. I love sales, and there's only one thing I love more than sales, and that's profits. But we got to have some sales in order to get some profits, so I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, I can't wait to join you. Thanks for having me.
All right. You know, I was reading through your bio, and there's a lot of people that come on the show that are really good in accelerating sales. But like me, you also had one where you took it from $1 million down to 0. I did that too. So tell us how'd you do it?
Well, yeah, it's not something that I enjoy, right? But I wish it had not happened in my career. But I will say it has taught me so much. I had started a company that was completely ego-driven. It happened after 2 great successes in my career, and then I just wanted to raise venture capital. So I did that. I raised over $1 million of venture capital in 57 days on a PowerPoint deck for a B2C company in Indianapolis. And if you know anything about the Indianapolis market, we don't do B2C here. So all those things were crazy. I took that investor approval as market acceptance. And it could not have been farther from the truth. The market completely rejected our product. That, by the way, we took way too long to get out into the market. And yeah, it took 2 years to basically run the company into the ground, 100% loss for myself and all investors.
I'm sorry to hear that. And it's a painful experience, but like you said, you learn so much by those experiences. And one of the reasons that we have this show is so that people can listen to this show and not make their own mistakes. They can learn from our mistakes. So tell us some of the things that you learned from that.
Well, I think the biggest one is what I just alluded to is knowing what the market actually wants. And so there were so many errors that I had. Obviously, one of them was taking the investor's approval by way of them writing the check as if that was market acceptance. That wasn't the case. I wanted to build this product because I wanted it to exist in the world. And the key phrase that I said there a couple of times was I. But it had nothing to do with me. And so even when I was out doing market data, market research, market analysis, all the information that I was looking for, I had a confirmation bias that I was trying to see. And so once they said what I wanted them to hear, or let's go the other way. If they did not say what they wanted them to hear, I just kept asking questions until they did say what I wanted them to hear, or I completely dismissed them. It's like, well, this person's clearly not smart. They're not our target audience. They're not our user. It just didn't matter to me. And so those were a lot of the things that really kind of got to me. One of the other ones I mentioned is we took way too long to actually get the product into market. And then once we did, we immediately got the feedback that says, wait a minute, something's not working here. They're not using it the way we thought they would. And that's like, me, again, being very ego driven at that point was like, well, it's because our product isn't fully baked yet, right? Like there's still a few functions and features that we've got to build. And once we have that, then everybody will start using it. And it's just, I avoided all the signs of that early failure because of ego.
Yeah, it's so difficult sometimes because there's no exact science between keep pushing ahead and eventually somebody will get it and you'll find that kind of groove, and this is just the wrong street. It's so difficult to figure out, what the right decision is.
Well, it is. And at the same time, when we had $1 million in the bank, and I had two other co-founders that I think are very, very, very intelligent people. And so when you look at that, we're like, well, three smart people, we hired a team, we got $1 million in the bank, we're good. We've got time to figure this out. And while $1 million may sound like a lot of money personally, $1 million for a B2C business to get off the ground is like literally nothing. It's like $5. Yeah. And so we just wasted it. We squandered it.
Yeah, it happens. It's so often. As a matter of fact, the more cash that you have, very often it just gets squandered or used poorly. It's when you don't have a lot of money that you just got to bootstrap and figure out how to make it work.
Yeah, you become resourceful and you find ways to get things accomplished as opposed to relying on the cash in the bank and being able to use that money to buy your way out of situations. Well, unfortunately, as we got to the end of our time, we had no more money to buy our way out of problems. And someone told me that once the definition of capital, venture capital, is the amount of pivots you have left in the bank. And it was interesting because we were completely out of pivots. And what was interesting is when we shut down, or we're in the process of shutting down, I do believe we had finally figured it out. We had finally cracked the code of what our customers actually wanted, but we just didn't have the runway left. We didn't have any more pivots to go try.
Only reason you go out of business is you're out of cash.
That's it.
Got to conserve that stuff. And as a sales guy, I think it's difficult, too, to just finally throw the towel in because there's always another day, right? It's like as long as I'm breathing, I know I can make it happen. It's just maybe taking a little bit longer than I want it to. What do you tell people that you run into, they're pushing. They're not getting what they feel is any traction. But as we know, you've got to plant the seeds first, and then it takes some time for those seeds to germinate and actually sprout. What do you tell clients?
Well, so we're talking about a couple different things here, right? So if I'm talking about from that B2C perspective, I couldn't sell my way out of that problem, right? And so we can go talk about the app if you want. Essentially, we were trying to create a home that could run on autopilot by way of a mobile app. And so, for instance, I wanted to do all your lawn mowings, all of your carpet cleanings, all of your mulch, all of your maintenance, all that kind of stuff. And because we didn't build a company that had all those services, we were contracting with third parties. I made like 14% on all of those services. Well, that wasn't enough money to keep us sustainable on our own revenues. And so the reason why I'm bringing that up is because I, as a salesperson, I could not sell my way out of that problem. It was more of a marketing game. I had to have sold a whole bunch of lawn mowings, a whole bunch of carpet cleanings for me to make any money whatsoever. And as I was talking to people, again, during the shutdown, a lot of people always asked, what would you do differently? I said, well, honestly, knowing what I know now, I would not start a B2C company because if this were a B2B company, I could sell my way out of this problem. I could go sell a $5,000 consulting package. I could go sell a $10,000 services gig and those types of things to give us additional runway. But from that B2B perspective, as you said, you talk about the seeds being planted and they need time to grow and germinate. It is that, right? So I believe that compound interest pays, cash daily. And so it's the behaviors that you do every single day that are going to pay off 3, 4, 5, 6 months from now. But you can't stop doing them today when it doesn't look like you're making any progress.
Yeah, it is difficult. Now, I know you've got a 4-part framework for setting and achieving sales goals. And the first time I saw that, I thought that was interesting. I was like, yeah, just set them really, really low. Of course, we don't want to do that. That's one strategy, not a good strategy. So tell us.
Yeah. Well, so when I talk about this, I'm actually going to break it down. It's going to seem very simplistic, but that's the problem is I see too many people try to make sales too difficult, right? So the 4-step framework is literally prospects, how many we're going to call on, discovery calls, how many do we have to have from that, proposals, and I don't necessarily mean written proposals, but the proposal stage for me is I call it the gap fulfillment stage. So it could be a proposal, it could be a demo, it could be a trial, it could be any type of thing of how you fulfill the gap and show them what could be. It could be a trial, anything like that. And then finally closed won deals. And so for me, it's all about working the math backwards to know what you have to do today, because way too many people, whether you're a sales rep or you're the owner of your company, you may set a goal that says, hey, I want to do $1 million in sales, or I want to do $100,000 in sales, whatever that number is. And they're like, okay, well, that's fine. I want to do that in the next year, but I'm at day 1 and therefore I'm at 0. what are all the steps that I have to do between now and then to actually get there? And too many people don't even know that. So this 4-step framework actually just breaks all that math down so that you can accomplish that goal on a daily basis.
Isn't it interesting that the best ideas, the best strategies, the best tools are the simplest? And it's interesting because clients all the time push back and go, yeah, that's easy. But no, tell me like the real secret stuff, right? And it's about just doing the blocking and tackling, the simple things. When I had my manufacturing company, I knew for every 14 customers I went out to see, eventually, it didn't always happen that week or that day, one of them would turn into a sale. I just knew the numbers after working them for so long. So I knew if I needed to get to X, I knew what my average sale was. So if I wanted to get to $4 million in revenue, that meant I had to go see X number of people or the sales team. And again, my numbers were a little bit, my 14 for everyone I saw, some of our sales rep were 20. So it depended on what that particular person's numbers were.
Yeah, that's totally right. And so, the framework I like to use here is let's go back and use this number 100,000 just for simplicity's sake, because I know as you're listening to audio, it's sometimes hard to visualize numbers. But so we'll use the nice round number of 100,000. Let's say that you wanted to go from $0 to $100,000, and let's say your average contract value, as you just stated, let's say it's $5,000. Well, let's just do simple math. I need 20 people to buy a $5,000 product for me to get $100,000 in revenue. That actually now seems attainable. So now I'm going to work backwards, and I'm going to show you how that small number goes into being a big number, but then I'm going to bring it right back down to a small number, right? So if I need 20 people to buy something at $5,000 over the course of a year, well, how many people do I have to give a proposal to, again, or a demo or a trial or whatever it is that you do as a gap fulfillment step? How many of those people do I have to propose to get 20 deals? So let's say we have a 50% conversion rate, right? Because I want to go kind of low. And again, realize we're at the proposal stage, not the prospect stage. So if I have a 50% conversion rate, that means I have to propose 40 people the deal that we're going to do in order to get my 20 that I need at $5,000. Well, how many people do I have to run discovery calls on in order for me to give that many proposals? So I'm going to use a lower number here. Let's say 33%. So 33% of all the people who I run a discovery call with are going to become proposals. So if my number is 40, I now need 120 discovery calls, again, over the course of a year. Well, how many prospects do I have to reach out to in order to run 120 discovery calls over the course of a year? I want to have even smaller numbers here. You just mentioned you had to see 14 prospects for you to basically get a deal done. I'm going to say I have to see 10 prospects just to get one of them to take a discovery call. So a 10% conversion rate. That means if I need 120 discovery calls, I'm going to need to see or reach out to 1,200 prospects. All right. So now we're at that really big number again. And that may once again seem daunting. But here's the good thing. We're talking about the course of a year. So what do we know about a year? Well, we have 12 months inside that year. So now that 1,200 number goes down to just 100 per month. Well, inside of a month, we have 4 weeks. So now that number goes down to 25 per week. What do we know about weeks? They have 5 days in them. So now that number has gone down to 5. I have to reach out to 5 prospects per day. And if my numbers hold true, everything's going to go into sequence, that 10% conversion rate, 33% conversion rate, and then 50% conversion rate. And I will close 20 deals for $5,000 over the course of the year, getting me by $100,000.
Really, really good example. I love that. And there's 2 things that I see coming out of that. One is you've got to be tracking and you've got to be measuring. You have to analyze where your numbers are going because you're going to need some time to figure out what these things are. And it will come, the more you work it, you'll start to see them. And the other thing is that so many entrepreneurs forget is that it's not about getting from A to Z or from 0 to 100,000. It's about getting from 0 to 1.
Yes.
That's all you're interested in. And, we all fall into this trap, right? We want it faster, quicker. We want it now. But it's not about the 20 of sale. I have 7 more clients to bring on before the end of the year. And I'm not worried about number 6 or number 7 or 5 or 2. I'm worried about the next one. That's it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And because it's those behaviors that we do every single day. That's when I talked about the idea of compound interest pays off in the long run, but you have to do the inputs every single day. And so when I get to that number of 5, I have to reach out to 5 people every single day. It needs to become the first thing you do on a daily basis. I have to reach out to 5 people today. I can't put that off till tomorrow and say I'm going to do 10. I can't do it all in one day and say I'm just going to do 25, because then what happens when you don't do that? All of a sudden, that compound interest, that momentum, all of that starts to go away. And then all of a sudden, you have nothing in your pipeline. Well, if you have nothing in your pipeline, you have nothing to close. If you have nothing to close, you have no revenue. And all of a sudden, you start to say to yourself, you know what, maybe it's me. Maybe I'm just not good at sales. I was like, no, you're just not doing the activity that leads to the opportunity for you to be good in sales.
Yeah, even if you're horrible in sales, if you do the basics, you'll get some. Literally, they'll come in. They will actually fall into your lap if you simply do the process. So, well done. Well said. Thank you so much for listening today. I really do appreciate your time, and I hope you found today's show valuable. If you would like to receive these shows automatically to your phone or to your computer, simply go to iTunes and subscribe. After listening to several of the shows, if you're so inclined, please leave us a 5-star rating, as this helps us reach additional people and spread the message. If you're truly committed to taking your life to the next level and doing whatever it takes to become a peak performer, but something's holding you back, something is blocking your way, and you just can't seem to figure out what it is, send me an email to info@thorconklin.com, and I'd be more than happy to get on the phone with you. We'll schedule a 15-minute discovery call. No obligation, no cost. I absolutely love to hear from the listeners, and if there's something I can do to help, I'd be more than happy to do that. Also, if you found something of great interest in today's show and you want to share that with your friends and family, simply go to my Facebook page, Thor Conklin, click on the episode, hit the share button, and share it on your page. You can follow me at Twitter at Thor Conklin. The website is thorconklin.com. We're constantly adding new free resources, discussing additional tricks, tips, tools, and strategies on how to be a peak performer. Remember, I try to keep these episodes short so you can listen to them during dot time, doing other things, commuting, driving, walking, working out. Decide to be a peak performer in all that you do. And until tomorrow, have an absolutely amazing day.
Be on the lookout for part 2 of our conversation with Jim, where he tells us how to develop a rapport with prospects by identifying their pain points, as well as how to employ what he calls tactical empathy. I'll see you guys on another edition of Peak Performers Podcast.